just because you're a former athlete, it doesn't qualify you to be a Sports Center anchor.
After the Olympic gold medal, the Rhodes Scholarship, 10 years with the New York Knicks, I was a U.S. Senator for 18 years.
How about any writing experience?
Well, I wrote 3 books, one on the bestseller list, and the Tax Reform Act of 1986.
But no TV writing.
Any experience in front of an audience?
Well, I gave a keynote address at the Democratic National Convention.
I meant a large audience.
Oh.
Welcome back. I am honored to welcome into the Jump former NBA All-Star, 2-time champion with the Knicks, member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and of course, former U.S. Senator, Mr. Bill Bradley. Thank you, Bill, so much for joining us today. And I'm really sorry your sportscasting career didn't quite pan out there.
Well, you know, only the very best make it on ESPN. I mean, you know, you can't have your own show unless you're the very best.
I've heard that somewhere. Thank you so much. Of course, a historic day for the country. What does Inauguration Day, especially this particular Inauguration Day, mean to you?
Well, it was deeply meaningful to me. I mean, I remember George Washington said the most important election that the country will have is not the first president that is elected, but the second. In other words, a transition of power, a peaceful transition of power. And that's what this ritual is all about. It's about going from one person to another in a peaceful way. And given the events of the previous 2 weeks, it's really deeply moving for me to see it. I'm always moved by these inaugurations. You know, I was on the dais when Reagan was selected, inaugurated, and when Clinton was inaugurated, and out in the audience when Obama was inaugurated. So it's a deeply meaningful ritual, symbolic of a new beginning.
You mentioned the events of a couple weeks ago. Given your experience as a senator for the state of New Jersey for nearly 20 years, what was it like for you to witness the riot, insurrection, the idea that they attempted to storm and take over the Capitol on January 6th?
Well, I was appalled. I felt personally violated because I knew all those nooks and crannies in that Capitol. I worked in that chamber. In that sense, I felt personally violated. The Rotunda is kind of the secret cathedral of American democracy, and people were in it defiling it. I think all of them should be prosecuted, and it should never be tolerated again.
We saw so many sports figures speak out after that event happened. And it's interesting. There are people who say, oh, we shouldn't have politics in sports. You played during a time where you know that was frankly never true, that there weren't politics in sports. And I'm curious what you think of today's athlete, NBA athletes in particular, who have been so vocal advocating on behalf of social justice. What has impressed you about that, and how does it compare to similar efforts by players of your generation? Because, you know, the 60s and 70s, that was a time, too.
Sure. Well, I'm particularly pleased by what they did in the lockdown in Orlando. You know, they took a real stand, and in taking a stand, they put themselves at risk. But Adam Silver's always encouraged players to be politically involved, and they were definitely that. In our time, we were politically involved a little differently. You know, I mean, I taught school in a Harlem Street Academy, worked in the poverty program in Washington. Other players did things with schools. So it was a little different, but the same element of commitment was there.
Absolutely. We're going to ask you for any Phil Jackson stories behind the scene from that time, or should I save that for off the air?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I'll tell you a story of Phil Jackson, not from those times, but related to the Senate. Phil always tried to get his players, stimulate them in many different ways. And so one day he called me up when I was in the Senate and said he'd like to bring the Bulls to the Senate. And so the Senate was off that day, so the chamber was closed. And I took the Bulls into the Senate chamber, and you know where Michael Jordan naturally gravitated, right to the majority leader's desk.
I'm not surprised. Nothing about that story is surprising, and very gracious of you to offer that tour. You know, the NBA released video of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar receiving his COVID-19 vaccine, and the idea was to promote the use of inoculations to end this pandemic. Commissioner Adam Silver added on Tuesday, the league has at least discussed having current players receive COVID vaccines to educate and influence the public regarding its safety and effectiveness. And kind of the line the NBA would have to walk there is, are they setting a good example by doing that, or is it going to appear too much that they're jumping the line in some way? Where do you fall on that? What are you in favor of there?
Well, I think that the more we can encourage people to get the vaccine, the better we're going to be. 100 million people in the first 100 days is a very ambitious goal, and people are going to have to know about where they can get the vaccine and be encouraged to take the initiative to do it. And there are some players probably who could encourage them to do that.
Absolutely. And I do want to ask you a little bit more about today's players, specifically, of course, your New York Knicks. They are off to a 7-8 start this season. Good for 6th place in the East under new coach Tom Thibodeau. How optimistic are you about this team, this season, the future of the organization?
Well, I don't pretend. Once a Knicks fan, always a Knicks fan. So I have high hopes. I'm pleased with where they are now, and hopefully we'll see where they are at All-Star time. If they're there, then maybe there's a chance to do well, better than anybody thought. But you always like to see your old team do well, particularly in New York.
That was a very political answer, Senator. I appreciate that. Last but not least, I want to know who your favorite basketball player is to watch in the NBA right now.
I like Steph Curry. I like the way he moves without the ball. I like the way he uses screens. I like the way he uses his hands to push off. And, of course, I like the shots. I mean, unbelievable release from incredible range. So I watch him and I see some of the things that he does out there that reminds me of what was really the best about the old Knicks teams.
You can hit from out there, right? Good 10 feet behind the three-point line?
Yeah, but it only counted 2 points then, Rachel.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.